Thank you, everyone, for joining this afternoon, or should I say evening or morning, depending on, where you are and where you're joining from. It is my distinct pleasure to actually introduce to you Dr. Fasaya. He is a luminary in both the medical field as well as real estate investments. So I am stoked about having him here today. Um, you know, uh, he is the founder and CEO of Dr. Breathe Easy Capital. His mission is super profound, yet very simple, right? Like he um, not only sort of augments like financial literacy among physicians, he also empowers professionals to achieve like financial independence through investing. I'm, very excited to have him here. His journey in investment landscape is just so diverse and very, very impressive. He's successfully invested in over 20 plus startups and sort of lends his expertise and, as an advisor to a board of growing like healthcare related startups. One of the other things which is super exciting, as I sort of, look at his background and his journey is his sort of practical insights that are backed by such, obviously he is, has like a robust academic background, from his professional background in medicine, specializing in, pulmonary and critical care. Moving on into, real estate investments, has been super impressive. Beyond his medical expertise, he's, like I said, an accomplished investor, keen eye for opportunities across like various sectors, in real estate, in multifamily housing specifically. He's done self-storage, oil and gas, commercial real estate, such a, a diverse sort of set in his portfolio. Under his strategic leadership, he currently manages, almost 143 million under assets. So it is, phenomenal. Today, we have him joining us to share his unique and intriguing sort of world of healthcare as well as real estate. His insight is going to enlighten, I'm sure, all of you and also inspire you to explore this avenue and sort of build upon your, investment streams as well. So we're going to start off with, some questions about this. We're going to keep this conversational. And I also wanted to, mention that just from a housekeeping standpoint, if you guys have any questions, feel free to post that, in the Q&A section, and we'll get to it towards the end. But that said, Dr. Fasaya, can you share with us, how you initially became involved in real estate? Talk to us about, sort of your investment alongside your medical career. Can you share your insights to that?
Thanks, Rashmi. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me. Yeah, well, I started real estate long time ago during my undergraduate years. When I first came, I emigrated from Nigeria to Canada. So let me just say, as a Nigerian, we're very big on real assets, right? We're very skeptical in general of anything that we cannot touch, which has its own positives and negatives, obviously, right? So you can make a lot more money, sometimes with assets that are virtual. However, we like to stick with something that is true, and tested. So I kind of already knew that real estate is going to be one of my asset class, even growing up, because that's what I see. And so in Canada, during my undergraduate years, and we're talking about 2008, 2009, right, during the crash. So we were doing reassignment homes, and this is how it works. So you basically, put 10% down on a new construction. So let's say it's 500,000, you put $50,000 down. And let's say it takes 2 years to finish construction. You can reassign that home within those 2 years. So, during those times, it was starting to get to the recovery phase. And Toronto, Canada was on a long bubble. Like it was the market was great for like almost 20 years. So what happened is, so we were doubling our money, so basically you put 50K, you sell for 650 or 600K. That's essentially tripling your money in 2 to 3 years. So it was so great. I mean, it's very, very difficult to reproduce now, I'm saying. And it was funny that at that time, we're actually doing syndication without me knowing it. Because during that time, we talked to different family members, like or friends, because we're not rich, obviously. So we tell other family, like, okay, you give 10K, 10K, 10K. So we just kind of put 50K together, like among 5 families. And then when we get a profit, we all just like split it, But that's, of course, there's no real paperwork. You basically just trust me, give me your 10K, and I give it back. So, but so, it worked well, right? Nobody lost their money, but it could have, gone bad, I guess. But so anyway, so that's one of my first introduction. And then I went to medical school, undergrad medical school, and I kind of had to, focus on my schooling, except when I go back home to Canada, I kind of get involved a little bit again, like what was the status of that one? Are we about to reassign, So, and then, so during residency, fast forward. So I was doing the regular white coat investor stuff, right? I do, basically Roth IRA, 401k, and try to just do some of these stocks. And then, then I heard about real estate syndication. So I actually got exposed to that. And that must have been almost over 12 years ago, right about. So I started, moonlighting. So moonlighting, for people that are not aware, is basically if you're in residency, you can do extra work on the side, as a resident. You can go work in the ER, or you can work, in the hospital and ask to work extra, and you can make extra money. So I started putting those money to work, and I started putting it into some syndication. And those are good times when syndication minimum used to be like 10,000, 15,000. The highest I had at the time was 25,000. And at that time, I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And now minimum is like 100,000 in many deals now. So anyways, so I had a good experience, and thankfully it was also a good time when the market was coming up. So, so I did well in those. And finally, when I finished my fellowship, so that's about 6 years later.
Yeah.
So I decided to, what, just like a typical Nigerian, we always want to get into the thick of everything, We're just not satisfied being just a limited partner. So I said, you know what? I want to do what I do. I talked to one of the guys I invested with, and then he took me on, and then I started raising money for him. And on the side, I bought my own building just to, experiment. So I bought my first 8 units. And then, then the next year I bought another 8 units. So, so slowly, so that's how it is. So obviously, many years later, I started my real estate syndication, my own personal one, and piggyback on the experience of my mentor and all the things I've read. And by the way, my undergraduate was mathematics. So I kind of love the numbers, like, so basically people love just sharing with me the underwriting in general, even before I even started my syndication. They just love being like, hey, Bio, okay, let's take a look. Well, what do you think about these numbers? And I love the numbers. Like, in fact, the best way to sell me anything is to just give me so much numbers. So and like I just get so and deep into it. Like,
Awesome.
So anyways, so that's how it is. So right now, fast forward, We have about 1,043 multifamily units right now, and that is between development, value add mostly,
Yeah.
and then different classes, class A, class B, and class C. And
Yes.
also we have 5 self-storages, individual ones, and then we have 2 luxury senior living. We're actually going to be exiting one of them potentially, so we just finished construction, and we're going to refinance and give back investors back their money. And and then we also do oil and gas along the way. So what I find out is once you start doing, syndication, you could basically syndicate anything.
Yeah.
So we also bought some businesses for vertical integration. So we got like electrical company, sign company, because every time we buy any property, the first thing we do is get a sign.
Yeah.
And then it takes like 8 weeks, sometimes like one time it took like almost 6 months. Like, they just took forever to get me the signs. I'm like,
Yeah.
how hard it is to get you a sign. So anyways, so yeah, I'm going to stop right there. But, so that's how my journey has
That's
been.
awesome. Just so impressive. I'm curious though, because I know, some of the things that I have heard, in talking to, folks who are in the medical field is, the time commitment that they have, to doing what they do actively, correct? And I know I heard your sort of commitment to growing your portfolio, but also being a resident or doing your residency, how did you manage to carve away time to actually learn about this business and, focus on investing as an LP earlier on in your sort of career?
Yeah, well, great question. Um, I've always been kind of a workaholic in a way, in terms of growing up. If you look at, I actually wrote a chapter in a book called The Transformational Journey, and I talk about my upbringing. Like we have to wake up like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. We have to walk a couple of miles to get water. We live in a poor neighborhood where the rich guys have the borehole, right? And instead of giving it to us for free, they actually sell it to us.
Yeah.
But we take our buckets or jug, we walk all the way, pay, get the water. Sometimes you have to line up. And, and if you're late a little bit, then you take longer. So you have to, know how to time it properly. So what I'm trying to just use that as an explanation is the fact that
Yeah.
I kind of grew up that way. And through our medical school, I wake up at 4 o'clock, I go to the lab before everybody, take a look at the cadavers before everybody got there, so, so just kind of familiarizing myself with it. So, so I kind of like that. Even now I work at 4 o'clock, meditate. so I'm used to longer hours and, efficiency, time efficiency. All right. A very good time management.
Yeah.
You also, you learn, you didn't learn everything all at once, obviously, because as a limited partner, of course, my first deal was basically when you look back, you're like, I can't believe I did this.
Yeah.
It worked out well, but you look at the deal, you're like, this deal is like, my due diligence was
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
But you learn along the way, right?
Sure.
So I was doing limited partner first. That takes a less amount of due diligence. At that time, the only thing I need to know at that time was, do I trust this operator?
Yeah.
So your job is easier. So at that time, I was like, okay, is this guy that has a good track record? And do I trust him to at least? And also, is it legit? My money is not gonna just scam. I was more worried
Sure.
about being scammed.
Yeah.
So, so once I got all that done, some background checks and things like that, I'm like, you know what? Here goes nothing.
Yeah.
So, but then over time, you just learn as you go. And also, I used to blog, Dr. Breathe Easy Finance.
Yeah.
So I was, and that actually helped me a lot because to blog, you have to read books.
Yeah.
So, so if I want to talk about Total Money Makeover, by Dave Ramsey, then I have to read it first,
Yeah.
summarize it, and then write a blog about it.
Right.
So that I read so many books along the way.
Yeah.
At one point, I was reading like, probably one book a week or every other week. So because you have to write the blog on it.
Yeah.
And that's alongside with my medical books. So yeah, so time management, and also, at that time also, like I got married my third year of residency, so I was single. So I literally don't see why you don't have the time. So
Yeah.
I was literally just spending all my time just learning and self-development.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I think, the two big things from a strategy standpoint that I hear is, like just time management, which is so crucial, and, self-development. And, I think those are two powerful, ones right there. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm curious. I know you kind of talked about this, a little bit. Like why real estate? Can you share sort of, with the audience, like the value of real estate, especially for medical professionals, right? Like there are so many asset classes that are there. I know one that you talked about was more, sort of a tangible asset. Outside of that, can you sort of share what it is that you like about real estate specifically?
Okay, well, so yes, first is the tangible parts, right? Like, um, it's like even for my parents, it's tough to let them understand anything else, like stocks, crypto. But when I tell them I have 62 units of my own, not syndication, just my personal ones, they
Mhm.
understand that. They're like, thank God, this is awesome, So so that's just something that they can feel and touch. You can drive them over there. They can be like, this is yours, nice.
Yeah,
So it's more
yeah,
of a personal pride also. But
right.
more importantly was, I feel like, I do stocks too. I have 30% of my portfolio in stocks. Okay. So I
Yeah,
have, a percentage of portfolio, right? So at about 50 to 60% in real estate, 30% in stocks, and 10% in asymmetric upside play, like venture capital, like you said,
yeah,
startups. I do startups. And but those money, I already assume it's gone, all the startup money.
yeah,
But so anyways, so real estate for me, I think is good for base, in terms of it fluctuates less than other asset classes. And
yeah,
I've invested in crypto. I've invested in every single other ones, right? I did forex trading once. Just like a typical entrepreneur, you try different things, right? You have
uh-huh.
to do it. Otherwise, you would not. Nobody can really. I cannot believe people 100%. So I will have to try it myself a little bit, and then
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, well, that was a very $30,000 lesson.
yeah,
So um, so it's stable. It's more stable, and also it's very diversified in itself also.
hmm,
So I was reading on a blog, from, I think it was from Bigger Pockets, about there are 100 ways. That's what they came up with to make money in real estate. There are
and
actually much more. So
yeah,
just in terms of multifamily alone, you can do value add, deep value add, light value add, construction. There's like literally class A, class B, class C. You
yeah,
can diversify in multiple ways, so that even just within itself, you can be diversified. So I found that to be good. Steady cash flow, tax advantage is a big one for me. My
yeah,
wife is a real estate professional, so which means she stays home and she's able to help with some of the real estate work.
yeah,
So as a result of that, even when I make like $600,000 from my actual job,
yeah,
so you can depreciate up to 540 or so.
yeah,
So basically, I pay almost no tax.
yeah,
So so that's helped me a lot. So for me, I can't find anything else that beats those kind of advantage. The steady cash flow, the depreciation, get to depreciate the whole property.
yeah,
Like there was one 33 unit I bought, personal one. I
hmm,
It was a $2.1 million. I put 15% down, right? And then I did some creative financing with the seller in such a way that they give me some credit.
yeah,
So the actual money I put in there in the deal was like maybe just about 300K.
yeah,
Okay, even with closing, with everything.
hmm,
But when I did my cost segregation, it was like 700K.
yeah,
And I was looking at it, I was like, how do I get 200 or over 200% of depreciation? It doesn't
right,
even make sense at all. But
yeah,
hey, I'll take it. So
yeah,
that
yeah,
alone
that's
was good enough to depreciate all of my money, all of my W-2 income, just
Right.
1 year, like
Yeah.
for that year. So that's insane. I got
That's
200,000.
powerful.
I got $200,000 back. I was so excited. So anyway, so yeah, so I don't think anything beats those combination of, and the government that make it easy for us to do real estate, because it's something that they encourage, right? By giving you tax breaks and advantages.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I think, out of all of the other asset classes, just that opportunity to be able to leverage, I think is so powerful. You can do that with real estate. Like you said, you probably bought, this, did you say 10 unit,
no,
for,
well, it was in Tulsa, so it's not as expensive. It was 33
okay,
units for
okay,
$2.1 million.
okay, yeah. And you put 300,000 now, like just that, amount of, the value of that asset is so much more. So yeah, no, that's awesome to know that. Very cool. Um, they just wanted to, I mean, while I know like real estate is great as an investment, there are also sort of common risks that are there. Can you talk about what are ways that like I mean I'm talking about generally as well, like as not just specifically as medical professionals, but just in general, what are risks that that we should be aware of, and how do you go about mitigating that? Can you sort of share your personal sort of experience, maybe an example of it? That would be great.
Yes, this is very important now because we've seen, this is the another end of another cycle, right? Where we can see many, at least every other month, there's a news of a big company failing.
Uh-huh.
I just heard about another one, which I'm not going to mention. We raised $500 million. So these are not inexperienced
Yeah.
operators. These are operators that have been around for 20 years or more, and they have other people to raise for them. So if you can do a fund of 500 million, I mean, you're not a small fish.
Yeah.
So, but the whole 500 million fund is failing. They're doing a capital call,
Mm-hmm.
and the capital call does not even sound good. When I read the letter, it sounds more like we're trying to just throw everything at it and try if we can save it. Hopefully by next year, when the interest rate goes down, we can refinance. And I'm like, if the interest rate doesn't go down,
Yeah.
even if you have put more money, you will have lost it.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice to my friend was, do not put any more money in the deal. You can be, so basically, yes, with any investment, you can lose your money. That's number one. And yeah, less likely overall, I'll say, but it's possible still. And the other part of it is also, if you don't know the partner, the operators very well, you don't have a lot of control.
Yeah.
So that's one thing about syndication, right? You don't have the control, so you're basically depending on someone else. And
Yeah.
even in a good deal that is so perfect, like I've seen some deals that into my head, I was like, it's impossible to screw it up. It's impossible. I look at it, I'm like, how is it possible? You bought it 50% off.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's literally, but somehow they still mess it up. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so be having to depend on someone doing it. So that's one disadvantage for sure. And also, just like any investment, you have to take your risk based on your appetite, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are two that I can think of. And just like any other investment, just copy and paste. You don't get return for no risk.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to take a little bit of a risk for higher return. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's a balance of that's how much risk, where then you lose the money. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you go about sort of managing risk, in your sort of investment journey, especially when you're, LPing on other people's deals?
Yeah. Well, number one, so we do actually, if you go on our website, you can download 101 questions under resources, drbdz.com. Under resources, you're going to see we have a list with over time where we took from other people and then we added our own, and then we put it into different categories.
Yeah.
There are questions you need to ask the operator about themselves to know about their competency and their track record, right?
Yeah.
Then there's some questions you need to ask them about the deal itself. Like, like somebody posted in the Q&A, right, about what are the metrics. So you want to know the cash on cash return, cap rate, you want to know, what is your return of investment, your internal rate of return, average annual return. There's many metrics. Like, I can show you one of our underwriting if you want later. We have like hundreds of numbers. So you just have to make sure they all make sense. You have a criteria for each one of them. So, you have also other questions for the operator about the area also. And you can look this up yourself. After a while, I get to, Google does a lot. I look at the crime in the area. Is it a petty crime, or is it a, what kind of, is it like violent, or is it just like, if you leave your car, your key inside your car, somebody stole your car, well, that's different than, somebody breaking into your car, and stealing something in your house. So you look at different kind of, also you look at, you also talk to references. You talk to people that have invested with the operator before. You try to, you let them give you references, but of course they're going to give you the best one. So you yourself, like I will go on LinkedIn or Facebook and I look on their list of friends and I will just private message like 50 people, like, how much do you know this person? And I find someone that kind of know them enough, but but not that like, oh, I'm a next door neighbor. I'm like, no. I go for someone that like will give you the true, honest opinion. So
that's actually so powerful. What you just mentioned, is to do your due diligence on the sponsor and the operator before you go about investing. I know, like, just going about, doing that, not just like going and not asking an operator for references, but actually going and independently doing it yourself. You really understand, the true, feedback that, like you'll get from, from people. And I think that is, it's super powerful to be able to do that, because that's when you really know whether they're a good operator or not. Because to your point, if you go to an operator and ask them for references, they're obviously going to give, like references of one of the best, folks that, people who will vouch for them versus the other way around. So that's great.
I'm just about to send the link. Okay, I sent the link. So you can have that 101 question. It's just a, Word document. It will tell you. I mean, obviously, you're not going to sit down there and be like, okay, give me 3 hours of your time and let's go one by one. Just pick the most important ones. And then just ask them, like, hey, have you invested in this kind of deal before? How many years of experience do you have in this? Have you gone through a bad cycle before? Thankfully, we're all going through a bad cycle now, so we can say that next few years' time. We can be like, well, we've gone through 2014, 24, and 23. And this is how we managed it.
No, that's great. Thank you. How do you manage, I mean, I see there's definitely value in, like the operator and vetting the operator before going about investing, just to make sure that your money is protected. But outside of that, how do you sort of manage, like especially economic fluctuations, because these are ones that you don't necessarily have control over, right? Like, how do you go about, looking at that, and how can investors sort of protect themselves against that sort of volatility?
So that's why we are diversified. I thought about it, and there's many rule of thoughts about how to build wealth. There are people that will tell you you can just focus on one asset class, and there are people that do it well. I'm not sure if you're just into multifamily, Rashmi, but there are people that say, look, I want to just be the best. I want to be the best multifamily guy, or girl in the world. Whereas, in my opinion, I took a different approach that said, look, I want to be diversified. If one asset class is failing, I want to have like a backup on this side.
Yeah.
Maybe, perhaps maybe in the future, if I actually finally mastered one, I'm not talking about just mastering it like we do now. I'm talking about like you can't fail ever. You like so good. Maybe I will put my eggs in that basket. But even then, I don't know. I don't think I will. So I'm just saying that, so yes, you have to diversify your portfolio. That's what I do personally. First of all, I have a high-paying job. Thankfully, to the passive income, I'm able to start my own private practice. So that's one thing that is mine. I own, a medical practice, right?
Yeah.
So, short of my practice, that cannot be taken away. So that's yours, one. Number two, I have a real estate syndication business itself. So that's also a business of its own. And then invest in multiple different assets. Oil and gas, when it's doing bad, then storage is doing well.
Yeah.
Luxury senior living is doing great right now because of the silver tsunami. Like all the older baby boomers, getting older and they have lots of money. So
yeah.
I think that's the best way for us to transfer the wealth, give them a place to live. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then you get the money. So I think diversification is one. Number two is to have a criteria of what you invest in, and do not go out of scope too often.
Yeah.
For us, we have few things. I have few things I tell my acquisition manager. Okay, if number doesn't work with 80% occupancy, I put like a very stressed level. Don't even bring it. Don't bring it at all.
Yeah.
Right. But there are a few things that we put. So this one about picking the market. So things you can quickly look up. Look at that market and look at rent growth. You can just look online. You can find information that will just tell you, is there rent growth in the area? I look at employment. There was a deal, a local deal that we find in a town, like about 30 minutes from me, and Walmart just pulled out of that town.
Yeah.
I don't care what you tell me. If Walmart is leaving the town, it doesn't matter if it's $1. I'm not going into that deal. So you have to have some criteria. There's population growth.
Yeah.
You look at population growth, that's easy. Look at census and look at, is it declining? If it's declining 1%, maybe yeah. But if you see like 14% have moved out of the place in the past 3 years, I'm not investing in there. Income growth. Also, you want to check that. Sales trend. And we also look at supplies too. So I got better over time. Before I would just look at rent growth, and the later on I add population growth. Then I add, so over time now we have like a list, like I said, 101 questions of things that we look at before we finally say this deal is a good one. So yes, so that's how to protect yourself, diversify, and also have a list of criteria. Don't FOMO. Fear of missing out is the reason why many people lose money.
That's true.
You just invested in them. You've decided, okay, this year I have $200,000 to invest, and I'm going to put 100K in multifamily, and preferably maybe 50K into construction and 50K into cash flowing light value add, right?
Yeah.
And then the other 100K, I want to put 50K into oil and gas, another 50K into maybe a business or something like that. So if you already have that determination, now you hear a deal that's so beautiful, like they're like, oh man, you're gonna get 3x return, you're gonna do this, and then you're like, man, let me just put all of this 200K into this deal. You're gonna regret that action, most of the time, because
that's true.
it's just too much risk. So just break into pieces until you learn about the operators, and also you learn about the market, and also and don't rush. There's no need to rush.
That's true. No, absolutely. That's great. I think, just defining what each one's sort of buy box, even as an investor, as an LP, is so important, just to be able to diversify and then, come up with those criteria. I think that's, that's definitely, like wise, to do for sure. Especially when, and I think it's a good segue to, the other thing that, I wanted to talk about is how do folks in the medical field sort of get in, especially when you're new, get into multifamily or get into real estate specifically? What would you recommend be sort of that first step, in making an investment? I know we talked about, sort of market research a little bit, defining sort of your criteria. In addition to that, can you share, any other strategies that they'd be able to use to help, organize, their not just near-term, short-term, like gains, but also sort of long-term investment vision? Like, what would you, suggest or recommend to them?
Yeah, I would recommend, first of all, is to find a mentor. I always tell people, whether you're a limited partner, for me, even though I was limited partner at the time, I found one of the syndicators. I just like the way he handles himself, the way he talks about things, his communication skills and everything. And I reached out, after I've invested like 100K, I'm like, look, at least you give me audience, and it took his time. He actually ended up mentoring me, So I told him, I said, look, I kind of want to learn, not just how to do this, but overall, like what are the things, how to look through this. So also join a community. Like, for example, I'm sure you have a community, Rashmi. We have a community. We even have a WhatsApp group where everybody just discuss and talk all day. Sometimes the discussion goes overboard, but for most part, we all just try to help each other. Facebook groups. Just join the one that you feel like is, relevant to you and learn. Don't just be a passive member. Also post things. Be like, oh, I found this deal and I analyzed it, and this is what I think. And then they'll tell you, well, this is a bad idea. This is a good idea because of what? It's not just about, whether I want to invest, but it's about what makes you think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And there's some coaching program also, so there's some coaching programs, I'm not sure if you have one. We have one that, you can go and do. If you want everything into one place, you can do a go-to coaching program. But you can also find everything on YouTube, if you're ready to do the work yourself and put it together. Read some books, right?
Yeah.
Read some books. We get on Bigger Pockets. In my early days, I was on Bigger Pockets a lot. Always communicating, discussing, talking, and I met friends there that still remain good friends till now. And then you DM me, do you mind if I just private message you about the deal? So yeah, just like anything else, just educate yourself first.
Yeah.
And then, and after then, that's when you should start investing, because all this minimum investment is not easy anymore nowadays. So if you have only 100K a year to invest, even as physicians, so it's not, so that's it. So you better hit it right.
Yeah. And I think it's so valuable, isn't it? Like, I think especially in today's day and age when, we're just, there's so much of information that comes at us in terms of, like things that are there on social media, and you can get sort of caught up in, all the ads that, like come up just, in our feed. And, you're just like now, on a clicking spree, going from one screen to another, and can get caught up into, things that are out there if you're not a smart consumer. And I feel like it's, it's just like anything else, just education and making sure that you've gotten enough information about, the asset class that you want to invest in, I think is definitely like a gold mine there, in terms of, like what you shared. So, what are, in addition to sort of I know you mentioned this, you said, like you've got a sort of a diverse, portfolio between, commercial. I know you've done assisted living, you guys have, oil and gas. How did you sort of go about learning, all of these sort of different asset class? And how did you go about sort of picking? I mean, was there one that led to another, or can you talk to us about how you went about like defining how to diversify the different asset classes, even within real estate? I know outside of real estate, you have investments outside of that as well.
Yeah. So for me, it's based on what I need at the moment. But then once I have investors, then it turns out to what they need. So at first, what I first of all needed what I thought I needed during residency at that time was cash flow. I was like, okay, you know what? I want something to replace my income, when I'm working, so that I don't have to work that hard. So that was my first step, because at that time in residency and fellowship, you think because it's so much work, right? You're working 36 hours, oh. So at that time, I was just like, I thought, and also because you're learning, I guess it's a different experience. I enjoy when I graduated, I actually do enjoy the work more than training. Training is just gruesome, like I didn't enjoy it really, but when I started practicing, funny enough, I enjoyed it. So I was like, you know what? I just want to double my money now. I want to start, basically building wealth. I want my net worth to go up.
Yeah.
Because I know, I feel like I could work forever right now based on how much I like the work. I could have quit medicine right now, but I decided to start a private practice. So I can still, even if I work 3 half days, I will still know that at least I still have a clinic, I have my name, I'm still a physician, still making an impact. So when I found out, then my next step was, okay, fine. So then I started doing like construction, because at that time I feel like construction would give you more. You also give more depreciation, because there's a lot of things to depreciate, so tax, so then I started making a lot more money. Then tax started piling up. Now I'm like, man, I need more tax advantage. So I started looking for more things, like which of this asset class would do more. And then the oil and gas came by, mainly because of many of my investors would be like, look, it's nice and all, you promise us tax advantage, but you get all this tax advantage because your wife, it gets to be a real estate professional, but we cannot qualify because we make too much money. My wife is also a physician, so with double physician income, it's nice on paper, but now we have double the tax. So then I found oil and gas, which you can deduct against any type of income. It doesn't have to be passive to passive, like, like the limited regular real estate. So that's how we went to the oil and gas. And also cash flow. It tends to cash flow a little bit more, and the exit is also a little bit higher. Granted, higher risk. So you don't get anything for nothing, right? So you always have to either take more risk for more return, take less risk for stability.
Yeah.
Same reason why if you stay in your job, you're stable, but you're never gonna, be remembered. You're gonna be a basic person throughout life. But if you take a risk, quit your job, start a business, it's riskier, but you're more likely to make an impact and surpass, a bigger net worth. So basically, that's what it is. So yeah, so that's what it is. It comes by based on necessity and what's needed. Right now, we're actually looking at car washes, and that's because of all the real estate now. Many of them are not cash flowing as they should, right? So, and then you're like, okay, is there any other business that we don't even care about equity?
Yeah.
Just the cash flow. So there are some deals out there that will give you 12%, 14% return consistently. But when the 3 years is over, you get your 100K back, and then the 12,000 or 14,000 every year, and that's it. And they shake hands and buy. So, but you can think, that's less return, but much cash flow, and maybe a little bit more stable. So anyway, so we always look around and based on what's happening in the market, we say, okay, self-storage have more cash flow, right? Self-storage have much cash flow, but less depreciation. When we were depreciating like 100% for the multifamily, we were getting like maybe 50. If we're lucky, 60% depreciation for self-storages. There's not a lot of things. It's just wall. There's not a lot of things to depreciate. You have gate, wall, and just roof. So so it's not, so yeah, so basically just what you're looking for. So you have to balance. That's why you need to have your own list of things you want. You have your own personal financial statement to say, you know, that this is, I'm looking for cash flow. And then look for things that cash flow. And you know, I'm looking for to grow my wealth. And also, like I have my partner, right? George, you know him, Dr. Zure. So for him, he cares not just about that, he cares about legacy. So for him, if he tells, okay, he went invested in a plantation of like timber or something like that, that it would take 20 years or something to you know. So for me, I was like, no, I want cash flow and equity, you know. But for him, he's like, look, I want the kids, you know. I don't care for myself because I don't have enough money. So for him, those are the kind of things. Also, he also does like mineral rights.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I have mineral rights, I can have the mineral rights for life. But my kids can get it. So you know, just find what are your goals and then just decide what kind of investment you want to do. So yeah.
That's awesome. What you know, what resources have you sort of found, you know, like invaluable, like through your journey? Like I know you talked about, you know, like you're in you know, you've just read a lot of books, you know, can you talk about you know, what people can do? I mean, again, you know, like earlier on in their medical careers, you know, people's expectations and what they want and where they are in life might be different. You know, what recommendation, you know, would you have for them versus, you know, someone later on in their career, where, you know, like their goals might be different at that point. I don't know if, you know, if there is some insight that you can shed, you know, to these sort of two different groups.
Yeah. So I just think, I mean, I hear some residents reach out to me. I wouldn't necessarily say you should start the way I started. I was a little bit more, I'd probably say close to slightly impulsive in my, but at that time I was like, you know what? I'm just doing this moonlighting, and if I lose the money, you know, at least I get this residency, and then I'm gonna still make some money when I finally finish, graduate. So for me, it was kind of that calculated risk. But I would say, to be honest, is to focus in training and early career, is to focus on your basic things, right? So focus on your debt, you know. So depending on how big your debt is, you know, there's different rule of thought. For me, if you're more than 5%, you should really pay it off. Because that's guaranteed 5%, right? And you know, you just know that. And when I was paying off my loan, I had $200,000 loan too. And it was the most satisfying thing ever. You know, I paid it off by 6 months after my fellowship, but I was paying it throughout residency and fellowship. Some people would say, "Oh, just keep it." No, if you can pay towards it, just pay it off. You can get a job, obviously, that would pay it off if possible. So I just focus on the basic, gathering your emergency funds, like 6 months of living expenses. You know, if you spend 100K, you know, that means you need to build, you know, about 300K of money. So that's not easy. So that might take you a full year or 2 years to build that up. You know, pay off your loan if possible, and you know, and then you know, stabilize your family. You know, if you feel like you need to buy a house and things like that, you know, do what you have to do, and then you can start looking into building wealth. That's the way I see it. You know, I may not have done it exactly the same steps, but if I look back, there are some risks that when I look at it, uh, in hindsight, I was like, Bayo, you did some things that you just worked out.
Yeah.
So, but but it's what it is. You just have to take calculated risk. Uh, but you could have turned out the opposite way. So just still have your 401k, right?
Mhm.
I know people that took out all of their 401k or they don't contribute in the 401k. For me, I consider my 401k to be like my backup sort of. So, when I was employed, I contributed it into it, and now I can, take it out, maybe with penalty, but, you can still use it as
Yeah.
liquid fund if you need it. Because
Mhm.
now that I quit the job. So anyways, so that's what I'll say for most part is, yeah, just try to do your housekeeping mostly.
Yeah.
Form a good base.
Yes,
Life
because that would
insurance.
propel, those people who, later on in your career, once you have like a solid foundation, that would set you up, later on as you sort of build, whether you want, like, I know you have gone sort of part-time. It's not like you've given up, practicing, but you just have optimized your time to distribute it between, both keeping your medical, profession and still, doing that as well as, being able to grow your business. That's, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I must also add like life insurance, disability insurance. Just
Yeah.
get all those things done. And and then you can then start being like, okay, fine. So what next? Then you can start
Yeah.
putting some money into investment.
Yeah. No, that's great. Just looking back, I know you've had such a, like great, career, as well as, both on an investment side, as well as, from a medical, side. Like if you were to sort of give one piece of advice, to people who are kind of getting started in their investment journey, what would that be?
Like I would say, try to combine it together. Same thing. Join a community and find a mentor.
Yeah.
So basically, you need to basically be around like-minded people, because what I found out is even among my own family sometimes you still get doubters.
Yeah.
There are people that still be like, all these things, how do you know? And I'm like, I don't know, but I did enough due diligence
Yeah.
and I took some risk and it's paying out now. So, because people are going to discourage you. Also analysis paralysis, which is, I feel like I'm talking on both sides of my mouth, but I say do your due diligence,
Yeah.
but at the same time, don't let it paralyze you. Because I've talked to people, they'll be like, oh, I thought about doing real estate syndication 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, this would have been the best time when the market was up. And then, and now they're still thinking about it. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
You need to give yourself a time stamp. I'm going to research, I'm going to learn till January next year.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to at least try one, get my feet wet,
Yeah.
and learn along the way. So you have to basically, know how to do both, basically. So that's it. I know you said one piece, but that one just came up to me that people do that all the time that I talk to, because I talk to a lot of investors that'll be like, oh, I've been in your group for 3 years and I've just been watching and listening, which
Yeah.
is good. But at the same time, I'm like 3 years. So
Yeah.
you're not doing
Absolutely.
you're not active learning then,
Yeah.
right?
I think, just that bias for action, right? Like being able to take action on that, education. I think there's power and, yeah, like for many of us, whether you're in the medical field or not, I think, as an investor, just taking that first step, in saying, well, you know, this is what I'm going to do after, like learning about it. I think that's the most challenging part. But yeah, like if you don't do it, you're never going to know. And obviously, this is not money that you want to put as an investment, which is part of your, rainy day fund, right? Like, no, you don't want to do that, but you do want to be able to, take that action and invest, and I love that you started off early, but you invested, a little bit at a time, and then that stacked up. And I think it's that first step that you take, which is valuable. Anyways, couple of questions here before, like I know we're coming up on time. Like we have a question here saying, with working 14 hours a day as an emergency, doctor, how do you find time to participate, in more active to connect with others and get other investors? I don't know if you had any thoughts on, what one can do.
Yeah. For there's no substitute. I always say that there's no substitute for the grind.
For sure.
Okay, at least in the beginning.
Yeah.
People want me to tell them a nice answer of how I was sleeping and having a good mental health and everything. No, in the beginning, especially when I bought my first syndication, my first 8 units, tried to manage it on my own, then decided, you know what, I'm going to get a property manager.
Yeah.
So, so you, first of all, you have to do the ground. So I was doing 12 hours, yes. And then between the time I go home and midnight, I will be analyzing deals and preparing for the next day. And then I wake up at 4 and then I'm ready to go again. So I was doing that for about a couple of years, right? Until finally there was enough cash flow that I'm like, okay, what is the first thing I need to do? I got a virtual assistant. That was the first one, and it was overseas. So, that was 1,500 a month, but it took a lot of load off me that I could not even imagine I didn't do it earlier. And that's the thing. If you're going to do any business, I advise you get a VA ASAP, like today.
Yeah.
So basically it saves me a lot of things like, okay, you post on social media and do all those things on the side, that just take a lot of time to do. And also you work on automations, to do many of these things that things post by itself. And then, when you have time, you can go comment on it. So I did a lot of automations. I did a lot of, then I started hiring like, okay, do I need another VA now?
Yeah.
For social media specifically? Do I need somebody else for investor relations? Do I need an acquisition manager?
Yeah.
So because I wanted to, be an operator, then I hired, not hired, but I partnered with another commercial broker.
Yeah.
Who basically I said, look, you find me the deal, you get this percentage of the general partner, and we do it together. But you have to then analyze the deal and give it to me on a silver platter so I can just look at it and make changes. So you basically get efficient over time. So, but yes, so I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes, a lot of sleepless nights. It's what I feel like it takes in the beginning. But if you continue to do that though, then you're not learning. Then you're not cut out for it. Then you eventually know how to delegate, how to hire. And then you keep going. So yeah. So right now we're here now, and I'm happy about the result of it, and I don't regret any of it.
Yeah.
I'll do it again over and over. So that's what I'll say. So yes, so it's not easy, but if it's easy, everybody will be doing it. So
for sure. That actually leads me to my next question. What would you tell your like 13-year-old self, that you wish you had done, that might have maybe propelled, things forward for you today?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. If it's a time machine, I would just tell him to buy Tesla or this stuff. But but on a practical thing, sorry, my computer is about to die. I'm charging. 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, it's back.
Did we lose you? Oh, wow. Let's see. I think we might have lost him. We'll see if he'll come back on. Well, I know we're at time, and we'll probably wrap up. I definitely want to be able to extend, like a big thank you to Dr. Fisaya for joining and sharing his sort of incredible insights. Just so powerful to see. He's not only like a dedicated physician, but just, how he's thriving as an investor, a real estate investor, and, just the wealth of opportunities that, he brings, to share, not just with his, group, but, also with us today. And to all the, listeners here, whether you're, in the healthcare, sector. Oh, there you are.
Apologies. I had
No,
no
no,
warning whatsoever. Let's just say your computer is about to die and just died.
I know. No, I was like,
Unbelievable.
I wasn't sure if you'd come back, in
No,
time.
I was like so frantically trying to turn it on and off. But sorry about that, guys. I just don't know
No.
why. Somebody will tell me your battery is low or something. So, sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, I'm glad that, I'm glad that you were able to come on, I think it's valuable, to get your response to that, outside of, getting the time machine, for you. Like, what would be, something else that you want to sort of leave behind, that you want to share to your 13-year-old self?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. So, yes, if I can think about it, I would say more self-development.
Yeah.
So there are a few things that took me a while. I'm pretty vocal person overall, but it took me a while to be able to sell.
Yeah.
And there's many skills I had to learn as an old, like an adult, that I feel like I could have learned early on, and they would have been a part of me. And then so one of it is sales skills. For you to be comfortable, talking to people about products, about maybe speaking, that you do that early on. I think it will propel you a lot. Another one is negotiation, right? We all read all those negotiation books. Can you imagine you being a 13-year-old that has those skills and you're practicing it, you're using it? By the time you're like, 20, 22, you'll be like, you're like a savant,
Yeah.
So I
For
think
sure.
put more time into self-development. It's tough to tell a teenager, it's, you have your own mind and you're trying to do your own thing. And I doubt that I would even listen to my parents if they have told me that. But that's what it is. If I wish, to learn, because at that time you actually have time.
Yeah.
To learn it, because now you have to squeeze it in. Now, to squeeze in another book, it's tough between all the businesses, right?
No, that's
Now, so at that time, you have literally all the time in the world. Instead of wasting your time playing video games, you could be, learning more life skills.
Yeah, no, I think on that note, that's awesome. I do hope that, I think it's, yeah, as parents being able to instill that, but, I think that's going to be, definitely a valuable thing to be able to share and acquire. I think everything in, life that we do is part of sales. So, acquiring that earlier on is definitely, set everyone up, well. That's awesome. Very, very, very good insight. Thank you again, for being on this. Just a wealth of experience and, insights that you've shared with us today. And we really hope that this discussion has sort of sparked, like our listeners' interest, to be able to explore, these new areas and, and think about how they can apply their, not just their professional skills, but also being able to, learn, educate themselves, about investment choices, and then be able to take action. Because I think that's sort of the operative word here, is not just education, but also being able to take that step and, and taking action on it. Don't forget to obviously check, our websites out. I will actually share that in the notes, as a follow-up. And, follow us on social media, for any of the latest updates. Thanks again for sort of turning in, and, until we meet again, please, push forward sort of your paths to financial freedom and, multifamily investing. Take care, and see you next time.
Thanks, Rashmi.
Thanks
Thanks for
again.
having me. It's fun.
This was awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.